Welcome to the Human Design Collective podcast, where we explore this system as a unique map of our potential, from the mundane to the mystical. If you're looking to dive deeper into human design, we invite you to our Living Your Design workshop. You can start the course at any time and participate in live meetings with John Cole and Amy Lee. The next foundation course, the Rave ABCs, explores the dynamics of the body and the personality, the circuitry of the body graph, and the structure behind the hexagrams of the I Ching. It is the beginning of truly seeing the mechanics of the Maya, the energetic interactions that shape our experience. Our next Rave ABC live online 9-week course begins January 13th, 2021. For more information on courses, go to courses.humandesigncollective.com. Peter Berv is a true life explorer who has lived as a monk, studied multiple shamanic and healing practices, and learned lessons through marriage, parenting, divorce, finding love again, work, responsibility, and all the highs and lows that bring us growth on a soul level. A near-death experience in his early adulthood altered the course of his life and greatly opened up his intuition and awareness. Today, he shares his experiences as a healer, guide, musician, and human design analyst and teacher, and how they have all led him to a life he truly loves. We hope you enjoy his warmth, wisdom, and generosity as much as we did.
Thanks for joining us today, Peter. It's great to have you here. We usually like to start with just a bit of an introduction in terms of how you met human design or how it came into your life and what your story is.
Yeah, sure. Well, anyway, thanks for inviting me. I'm really honored to be here. And like you were just saying, and kind of in the hot seat with two projectors. I've just really been loving my projector friends and family, really loving their guidance. So this is fun. But yeah, I came into human design around 2010. I was in my first marriage. Around the end of my first marriage, things weren't really going so great. And one day she came home and brought me these charts that she had found, some human design charts. And I kind of rolled my eyes and I said, well, what is this? Who threw all this together to make a few bucks? And the deal. Eventually, she got a reading and then convinced me to go get a reading. So when I went to go get my reading with the analyst, who had actually been very close to Ra and had traveled with Ra for many years and was deep into it, I didn't leave his house for about 5 hours. We ended up creating a really close friendship over the years, and he's been my mentor ever since. Yeah, I was blown away right off the bat. I just couldn't believe how a foundation reading could name so many things in detail about me, like we've all experienced in a foundation reading. Just, how did you know that about me? So it's probably not unlike a lot of other stories. But then, we continued to do almost like some couples counseling with that analyst, and it actually helped us, dissolve that relationship in a harmonious way. And I'm really grateful for that we were able to take the blame and shame off that potentially very well, it's never a fun experience, but it made it as graceful as possible during that time. And so that was that. And then I just kind of kept going full speed ahead with, meeting with my mentor regularly, and then taking all the foundational classes and going through the professional training.
Sounds like it was a real 3-5 process, very experiential and practical, immediate when you encountered the knowledge, that it was immediately applicable to what was going on in your life.
Yeah, definitely. I've had a pretty messy life, getting banged up in lots of different ways and lots of trial and error. So this definitely gave me some solace and understanding to be at peace with that trial and error process.
In that experience that you mentioned, where the first impression of the system of, having these different pieces, astrology, the centers, the chakras, the I Ching, all thrown together, and looking at it and going like, what in the world is this, right? Who did this, or how could this even work? I had a very similar impression when I first saw it. And so it's interesting to hear you say that. How could this even work?
Yeah, I think you had that on your bio, on your page, on your website, that you mentioned that. Yeah, I was at a point in my life where I was kind of skeptical and felt like it was good to have some healthy skepticism about lots of things. And I just been kind of kicked out of an ashram a few years before, and just, had all these spiritual experiences that sort of ended in in a weird way. So I had a good dose of healthy skepticism about these kind of things, and where people try to get power and fame and money from all these things. I've had a vigilant eye towards these kind of things, and even for myself, just the mind is really tricky, how it creeps in and takes over.
Yeah, seems like a good way to enter into it with that, like you said, healthy skepticism, and then going into a verification process in your own experience. Like, does this actually help? Does this work? You had mentioned that you were in a relationship and you ended up getting a partnership reading, and that helped facilitate a more aligned or correct separation.
Yeah, I mean, I was, the person I was with was a manifester, and I'm a generator. So yeah, when you find out, oh my God, I'm living with a different species, it's enlightening, and no wonder we think differently, we act differently, we feel differently, and operate differently. Yeah, and so since then, I've really found that working with people who are also skeptical, those are some of my favorite clients to work with, because I'm like, oh yeah, I get why you're skeptical towards that, or why we all want to be safe. We want to feel safe with what we're heading into. And honestly, my wife now is, she was like that too. She's a science person, she's a cross of service. She's super logical. I've converted her. She's validated through her own experience all these things, and it's been beautiful to witness too. And so, yeah, I like to work with people who want to see, this isn't a belief system. This is a self-validating system that you have to try out for yourself. So
you're doing foundation readings and analyst work and meeting with people. Of all the people that you work with, how many are just coming into human design for the first time? They're heard about it and now they're showing up and they want you to give them a foundation reading. They don't really know anything about the system. Do you get a lot of clients like that?
Yeah, most people I'd say are within max their first 2 years of looking into things. Some people just heard about it last month and are, kind of like myself. I came in knowing zero. I honestly felt like that was the best place to come into it. There's people who've been trying to do a lot of their own research over the, first year or so, and then finally just hit that wall and just say, look, it's not just book knowledge. I need a guide to put all this together. So yeah, usually people are within their first year of looking into things.
They're open, they're interested, but they've still got to see it for themselves or go through their own process.
Yeah, I mean, when you do your own research and you're just taking the little bits and pieces of this and that, it doesn't really give you a sense of the synthesis, the quantum, where the chart comes alive and you see all the possible dilemmas, the this and the that, where it can seem like a contradiction in our personality and design. The grass is greener effect. We all have dilemmas. So to point out those dilemmas is really where the magic lies for me, to point out the quantum, to find it, and for it to come alive for me, and to sit down with someone and point it out to them is magical, really,
Yeah, I find that too. And sometimes even just looking at a chart for the first time, it does have a flatness to it. And I often find once I start to get into it, the whole thing does start to come to life. And I think you're mentioning a great point about how you can kind of piecemeal a lot of the flat information together. And then at some point to actually meet with someone or interact with someone who's able to have a really holistic view of it and sense of it makes a difference. And it sounds like you were lucky to find a guide right away that was really resonant with you and able to go deep with you right from the start. Were there things from that first reading? I mean, you had a long first meeting. Were there particular things that you remember from that were especially impactful for you? Things that were said to you or things that were recognized in you?
Just off the top of my head, what comes to me is that I was born when the sun was in the 59th gate, gate of intimacy. And I had spent several years in my 20s as a celibate monk, actually. And so, talk about the this and the that. I was definitely on the that side of things. I guess my whole personal story with that, why I chose that path, and now coming to the other side of that, embracing that I really am a being of intimacy in all its forms. I'm able to go deep in so many ways, and how I I wouldn't say that I shut it off, but I think that reading with the analyst going, look, you've got this, the 59's like this little erection sticking out off the sacral center, that's you, man. You've got to, embrace that side of yourself. Just the validation and coming to accept. I think that was one of the main things I can remember that jumped out at me.
And then as you started to work with it and go deeper with it for yourself, are there parts of the deconditioning process that really were confronting for you or especially intense?
Yeah, I mean, it's still going on. I personally think just the work with the open centers is the most rewarding and profound work. The openness is where we're here to learn wisdom. People bypass that pretty quickly a lot of times. And wisdom goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And so, having an open heart center and an open solar plexus, those are in the conditioning hierarchy, those are the two deepest. And so, yeah, I'm no exception. Those have been some of my deepest places of learning wisdom and boundaries and healing in life. But really, all the open centers, my intuitive voice would tell me one thing and I would override it a lot because of my own beliefs about being a man of integrity and always wanting to show up on time and, keep my word and stuff like that. And my spleen would be like, don't go there, cancel that appointment. When I realized that being in my integrity means following my design, even though they come from a good intention, you know what that means, but things really started to flow better. If I showed up a half hour late to a meeting, the person would show up 31 minutes late and I would just be in a state of acceptance. And I realized, this actually worked. But yeah, probably the open heart center really, really does go the deepest. All this trying to be something in the world, trying to prove ourselves in the world, trying to be an ego in the world. And I don't think it was even a few years into my experiment when I finally noticed that I'm the youngest of three boys. My two older brothers and my father all have a defined ego. And so here I was going to business school and, trying to be more and better. And when I finally realized I have nothing to prove, I'm really the happiest and most successful working by myself in a quiet room, when I have a massage practice and healing arts practice. And yeah, it's not about more and better and bigger and whatever. It's about accepting ourselves as we are. So yeah, I mean, it goes on. And
I like that you're mentioning the open ego because I think a lot of the prominent human design characters out there and teachers and a lot of the voices that are heard out there, if you look at designs, a lot of them have defined egos and most of the population doesn't. So I think it's a deep thing to look at, and I have an open ego as well, and it's a very visceral experience for me. It's just a very felt experience. So I'm glad that you're bringing it up. There are those moments connecting with something like that around this concept, something that sounds so simple as saying you're under pressure to prove yourself is a really simple thing to say, but then to actually be living your life and noticing how often that pressure or that sense or that experience comes up and what that feels like and what it feels like to act from that versus acting from your instincts or your intuition in your case. I'm wondering if you have a kind of visceral experience of that now, or if it's something you just notice in your thoughts. How do you notice that open ego piece?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, the mantra, I have nothing to prove, is what keeps me humble, is what keeps me grounded in that. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting being in a position where you're kind of like a teacher or a guide, and yet living our design. Being an effective teacher means being an example, living it ourselves. I guess for me, trying to find that balance of, I'm just a guy, I'm just a human, I'm a dude. And I guess also being a 3-5 too, I've just had to find that balance of keeping my crude humor to myself and learning how to be professional, but also not being something I'm not. Like I was saying earlier, like I've just seen that in the spiritual realm when just as soon as the ego kicks in, and there's just the name, fame, power, glory, money, all that stuff, and agendas, and I'm really guarded against that. So I feel like I just try to find ways to keep myself humble, to stay honest, to find that balance of being a guide that genuinely wants to serve humanity and love other people and share what I've been given, and not let that turn into something else with an agenda, or not try to prove something.
We were recently speaking with Linda Bonnell on the podcast, and she was relaying a story about Ra in the early years and working with him, and how much he emphasized humility in this work for analysts. That she said he really was kind of banging on that drum for a while. Like, don't let this get to your head. Don't think that you have special powers, or, that you're somehow above the people you're working with. And when I apply that personally, I feel like I'm just kind of reading a map half the time. I'm like a interpreter of some sort, talking to someone on the other end who is actually, at least in potential, the expert on their life. They may be working through something or still putting the pieces together, but that's what I kind of keep in mind, is like, hey, we're doing this together. We're going through this together, kind of a mutual process of discovery as we see what's really going on here. How do you approach that in a session when you're working with someone?
We're not therapists. It can be really easy. People want to start telling you their story and open up. And I'm just really clear on that. I'm not like a therapist, or I like to think of myself as everyone's brother, and I think that's, maybe that sounds kind of hippie or cliche in some ways, but thinking of myself that way and genuinely feeling that way is, I feel like that keeps me humble, because I just want to share what I've been given, really. There's a magic that happens in a reading, for sure. I mean, I'm not afraid to be firm with people either, and to share in a way that has an impact. I think I'm clear on the relationship. I am just a guide. I mean, I just became a Rave ABC teacher, and just went through the Rave ABC teacher training with Linda, actually. Got to listen to a lot of the talks from Ra about that. And I got to hear a lot of those talks of him saying those things you were just explaining. And it's really, really good advice, really good guidance from him, that, yeah, don't be attached to the outcomes. And it makes a lot of sense, because when I put myself back in the beginning of my experiment, there was just lots of things I couldn't hear at the time. We all know what that's like. It's 2-3 years later, you're going, oh, that's what they were talking about. And we can't control the timing and the way that happens. It's just about transmitting the mechanical knowledge and finding a way to put the magic and the juice and the life into it, not taking credit for it or any of that. I'm not really into that.
I think Ra did that so well in a way that a lot of other kinds of teachings don't always do. But to me, could always feel the firmness in him around, I can give you these mechanics, I can give you what I can, and you're responsible for your own life, and you're capable of being responsible for your own life. So this information to me seems like a validation of that, which creates a certain safety and autonomy and humility in all of it.
Yeah, it's a logical system with self-revealing mechanics. It's really easy for people to want to project their spiritualistic, culty, religious kind of stuff onto it. And I'm at the point in my life too where I'm a second color motivation, and so that the trajectory there is theist to anti-theist, and so I've come from a lot of that. I've traveled the world and checked out all that's out there, sampled all the flavors. It's just all coming from within out in that anti-theist kind of phase. So I kind of have an aversion towards spiritualizing things and, a hierarchy on things and all that. So.
You mentioned the magic that happens in a session a couple times, and I'm curious what that is like for you, or how you experience that or see that.
Yeah. What's been really alive for me lately is that this is a no-fault system. People are really hard on themselves. As I do so many readings, I just see, what I've heard Ra talk about, this greatest disease of humanity is this self-hatred. It's so true. It's just, we're all so hard on ourselves. And We've turned things into problems that don't have to be problems. I think that is what really excites me and really makes this work passionate, is that I want to show you that all these things that you were so convinced were real and were so convinced were a problem that you had to fix are actually part of your true nature and are actually something that you can come to accept and use as part of your awakening process. That's what lights me up, is to go, oh yeah, I hear the words you're using. I hear the stories you're telling me about the hard things you've been through and the situations you've got yourself into, and knowing how the open centers can, not just the openness, just how the conditioning, how the mind can play things out. Yeah, just to show them that. And it's exhilarating to say, look, I understand what you're going through, and here's your open heart center, and here's your defined solar plexus, and here's this open root. You just have been jumping into things to try to prove something or whatever, just very simple keynoting there. But when you can point something out like that and bring it alive, and then people are going, oh my God, and the tears start rolling down their cheeks, and realizing that all this weight they've been putting on themselves for so long is just, they can start a new way of looking at themselves and loving and accepting themselves, and eventually having this feeling of awakening as yourself. And it's hard to explain that, but it's just, it all comes from just deep acceptance. When we talk about the quantum, is kind of like, there is a magic there, this biverse. We live in a world of duality. The mind wants to polarize everything, but through the acceptance, it all becomes one. A colleague of mine gave me this phrase that I really like to use, called the heart of the paradox, because we do have all these places in us that seem polarized, and we can find the center. We can find the heart of that paradox, of those things that seem opposed, and awaken and find the true love and self-love and self-acceptance and all that. Yeah, I mean, I've been on a healing path myself for a long time, so I think this is what guides me a lot. Is I've gone through a lot of hard things, and I've gone through a lot of them on my own, and had to figure out a lot of stuff on my own without any guidance. So I think what gives me some kind of purpose is I can be a guiding friend, on this journey, and just say, I know it's hard. I know what you've been going through. You're not alone. And this is why. The information I wish I had when I was a child or teenager, or in my young 20s or whatever, to have had someone say it's okay, and we can expedite this healing process, and these things that seem like problems really are not problems.
And you work with some other healing or transformative modalities, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I've been experimenting with lots of different kinds of healing modalities over the years. Started off as a body worker and herbalist, and part of my journey has taken me into the plant medicine world. And I've found that working with some of the master plant teachers has become a pillar for myself on my path of awakening and my journey. And similarly, helping other people with human design and some plant medicine work. When I work with clients, I kind of give them the body, mind, spirit package, depending on how deep and what direction and what they need in their life. So I've been doing body work for 23 years. Profound way to work with people, because we hold a lot of stuff in our bodies. We hold a lot of trauma in our bodies. And so, it's massage. That's just kind of a good little undercover way of doing cellular transformative work. I work with a lot of people who have a lot of auto injuries and insurance clients and stuff, but a lot of people come do a lot of deep healing and transform trauma that we hold in our bodies that we can't always release with our mind. So there's the body side of it, the physical side, and then human design obviously works with the mind, through the mind to transcend the mind. And then the plant medicine work is definitely works with the spirit. Cellular, it encompasses all of it, but if I had to categorize it, that's kind of how I like to say it. So yeah, several different plant medicines that I work with people, and primarily ayahuasca has been a big part of my path, and has been a wonderful pillar to work alongside with human design. So with the plant medicine work, it's just, there's no question. It just brings it all alive. And for me personally, I've learned a lot about human design. It's not like I can structure it into a systematic way. One journey will give me this whole teaching about the magnetic monopole, and one journey will give me this whole teaching about the solar plexus, and another journey will give me this whole teaching about my variable or something like that. And so it really solidifies the human design practice and work deeper into the nervous system. And so I feel like they really go together, because there's obviously a resurgence of the whole psychedelic movement going on right now. But what I've witnessed is that you can still be focusing on trying to fix problems that aren't problems. You can still be trying to heal things that are part of your fixed design, or just your openness. You're never going to get to the bottom of that black hole of your open heart center. It just comes down to the acceptance. So the awareness of that and seeing those things come alive with the plant medicine work is very profound. And similarly, I just want to share that with other people. The full package that I like to offer is when people, at least when they live close by, is to do the body, mind, spirit package. And I've had a few mentees that I've worked with over the last few years, and it's just been wonderful to witness their transformations in their own way, starting with the foundation reading and doing the Living Your Design program, and then doing some, monthly mentoring, and then some occasional plant medicine work. Has just been so rewarding to just go, yeah, isn't this awesome that we can see all these things together and experience these things together and have this awakening this way. So yeah, those have been kind of the two pillars on my path. And when I was younger, I was a lot more into, it's like more new agey kind of stuff. I was really into these like ascension teachings, and yogic siddha teachings were really interested me in my late teens and 20s. And that was a lot of what guided me to be like a monk and to just go really deep into that. I was basically celibate and sober for most of my 20s. So I was just really deep in my yogic path. And so, I don't know, I feel like that gave me a really good foundation. I'm not so much into like the ascension, new age stuff as I used to be, and even question some of it, even from just what human design has showed me. But ultimately, whether that stuff is true or not, it's kept my awareness to be vigilant and focused on just staying clear. And just to say that's kind of been woven into my practice, especially with the medicine work. When I guide people on journeys, I just keep a really, let's just say, high vibration.
I can see that with the work that you've done personally, and just the attunement that you have with these different modalities and systems. As you describe it, your body, mind, spirit package sounds like quite a combo for transformative work. I mean, if you can take someone through that process, it's really going to cover a lot of ground or hit a lot of points or bases. I wanted to kind of go back a little bit and look at the relationship between human design and what happens in the plant medicine space. What's coming up for me is one of the things we get with human design is we get a pretty comprehensive map that can be used as a reference point as you're working through those spaces, which can be kind of hard to navigate. If you're working with ayahuasca, for example, all sorts of things are going to come up, or going to be going on in the room or in your life with others. And powerful as that work can be, it can be a little disorienting. And you see that type of relationship where you have these points of reference in human design that can then inform the experience in the plant medicine space?
Yeah, a lot of it just comes down to knowing my design. So it's going to be different for each person. Like I said, it's not like I can package this and give it specific labels. It's more just about, like for instance, understanding that I have an open solar plexus. I'll go in the room, I'll start feeling in a ceremonial space, I'll start feeling nauseous because I start feeling everyone's stuff. And then I leave the room and I'm like, oh, I can breathe again. And then I go back in, I'm like, oh, there it is again. If I didn't know that, it might be a little confusing.
Yeah.
Understanding that I'm single definition. I do a lot of my best work alone. I have to take time to do my own work, and usually just by myself. Like I said, I guess it comes down to just knowing yourself. And maybe that's a very generator thing to say, that's where the acceptance and the transcendence comes in. Another really big correlation that I've found these two pillars have helped me with are, I guess, what I would call surrendering process. I feel like human design teaches us to surrender. And that word can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, have a lot of different connotations. But what I mean by that, when our minds get out of the way, we attract all the right things naturally. Our imprint, our magnetic monopole brings all the right things to us. You know, it's not a mental thing. It's anything but that. It's getting out of the way and this deep trust in life, that life will bring all the right things to us. That's huge. I really try to impart that to people, especially when I give readings, that this is no easy shift to move from trying to control things with our mind. You know, being initiators. It's just what we're taught. It's not about being control freaks necessarily. It's just the way we're taught to be. And similarly with the medicine work, you know, I feel this path of surrender has taught me a lot. And in that context, it's same but different in the sense that, yeah, when you're going through a hard time on the medicine, a lot of the entheogens, you know, have this element to it. You have to go through some trials, and that's where we grow. That's where we go. That's where we go. That's where we grow is through those trials. That's a big element of a lot of these master plant teachers. And it's through those trials that we have to let go. It's mental. You have to let go with the mind, but it's like a full body, just surrendering to life and trusting that you might die. And that's kind of what happens is you go through a rebirth with a lot of those things. That does something to your nervous system. It does something to your whole way of being. And it's not something I really say lightly. I mean, getting this way of being of surrender into our life. Passenger consciousness. You got a picture of a bus above your head. So right as I said that, I saw this vehicle on this live video here. You know, surrendering to passenger consciousness is no easy task. There's fears. We're not going to be able to pay the bills. We're not going to be able to make it. We're not going to put food on the table or make our dreams come true or accomplish anything in life or whatever it might be. And what I've found through that process with human design and the plant medicine is that not only does everything come, but your greatest dreams will fall into your lap if you just let it. And so I can say right now that I live the life I love and I love the life I live, and I didn't do anything to get here. All of these things just came to me. My wife and all the work opportunities and recognition or this and that, or they all just showed up one day. And that's because I just followed my strategy and authority and practiced waiting and practiced being and surrendered to the timing of life and the way of life.
I can see how powerful that is, the way you're describing it. That process of letting go, surrendering, or just trusting in life to provide is, on one hand, it feels like a major leap for us, or it can feel like that, of letting go and trusting, and then dealing with everything that comes up in the process. The fears, am I going to be homeless? Am I going to be on the streets? Like, how bad could it get? And yet, like you're saying, the other side of it is, how good could it get? You know, it's like, why do we focus on just the bad? We could let go, trust, and surrender, and maybe be surprised by what life actually does have in store for us.
Mm-hmm.
Funny thing.
It's very vulnerable, but I can tell you story after story about how at the 11th hour, the money came through, the connection happened, the things worked out for the best. Now I really play with it. Like even in my my body work practice, you know, maybe I'll have something come up on my personal life and I might have to cancel an appointment. But I go, you know, let me just wait until maybe the day before to cancel that appointment. And never fail. Almost every time that person calls, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Something's come up for me. I can't make that appointment. Can I pay you the cancellation fee? You know, I'm like, yeah, sure. You can pay me. That'd be great. You know, I'm sorry, can't make it. And I'm like, perfect. Now I don't have to look like the one who's being a flake or whatever. So maybe that was a little harsh, but you know what I mean. Now it's not on me, the professional that's canceling on my client. I mean, that kind of thing happens all the time. I don't do anything. I just let it all unfold. So it's fun to witness, and it's very vulnerable at first. This is why it's an experiment. Let's see what happens. I'm going to trust until the last minute and see what shows up. And 99% of the time it does.
There's a certain kind of quality that I keep feeling as you've been talking that in a way feels like relief. The recognition and the letting go that you're talking about, even though at first there can be this anxiety or nervousness, like, but if I let go, things are going to be okay, but how's it going to turn out? But can you promise me I'm going to be safe? But what's it going to look like? Or I think I might have to keep fighting for my whole life to keep proving that I have the right to exist, or that I'm being productive enough, or that I'm being good. But what's coming across to me from you is that with this kind of a recognition, there can be this sense of just, no, it's okay. Just let go. There actually isn't a problem. And it's going to be all right. And I can feel it, and I've seen it as well. And I can sense it with you, that just the relief that can come from that is so profound, I think, in part because there's actually something inside of us that knows that we're not going to win the fight against our own nature. Or if we do, it's going to be really painful and hard the whole way. And I think part of the relief people feel sometimes is the recognition of like, oh, you mean I can just let this go? You mean I don't have to deal with it at all? Really? And that to me feels like a process. It's almost like we keep seeing it at turn after turn. And then over time, I feel like that's the trust that Ra was talking about, that builds in ourselves, in our own authority, in life, in our bodies, in the natural intelligence that we have. And the other side of it is such a relief. It's such a relief.
Yeah, thanks so much for pointing that out, because, that leads me to share that we are built to be in the illusion of separateness, but we're not. We're all part of this program. We're all part of this unified field, and human design validates that. I mean, even coming down to the most simple view of looking at our charts, personality and design come from all the way from, they're the same crystals from the Big Bang, still expanding, but suddenly frozen in time in these imprints that we are. We are literally part of that expanding creation. That might sound a little bit esoteric and all that, but it's true. It's like even that story about my spleen and wanting to be on time and keeping my commitment and stuff like that. If my spleen is telling me, don't worry about it, well, it would be more like cancel that plans or whatever it's telling me to stay safe and healthy. It's not just me. There's this fear that I'm going to be disappointing someone, I'm failing, I'm fucking up, or whatever it is, and there's a problem with me or whatever. It's more like, okay, there's this whole matrix, there's this whole unified field, and it's going, hey, that other person's not going to make it on time, or that other person's actually sick, so you might want to cancel your plans. Obviously it doesn't come across in those words, but ultimately I think that's kind of what that interconnectedness is. We can't understand these things with our mind, because there's so many things going on that we may never know, but it probably has to do with that, that unified field. But even deeper, that point that you made, Amy, that ultimately life loves us. Life wants the best for us. I think when you talk about that relief, I think that's what that comes down to for me, is that, there's a mechanical element to everything, and it's hard to talk about love and all these things. Ultimately, I feel that life loves us, is looking out for our best interest. And so when we surrender, things kind of do fall into place for the best. So trusting that. So, in the beginning of someone's experiment, and there's all these fears that things won't work out and we won't be able to pay the bills and all this stuff. I think what I like to share with people, when we talk about waiting, everyone has to wait in one way or another, no matter what your type or strategy is or authority. Everyone's got to wait somehow. For me, that waiting is not just like, oh shit, is this going to work out? But more like, what's coming? When's it going to come? How's it going to come? How's it going to look? Almost like this trust and eagerness that life will bring the best things for us, even if it's hard. And so, not to get too cheesy with any of this stuff, but it's, ultimately, I think when I really sit with that, that's true. That's what my experience has been.
Yeah. We talk about the concept of passenger consciousness, or the experience of that, of actually learning to allow the mind to watch life unfolding, or that there's a process of waiting that's natural. And sometimes when we first hear that, there can be this sense of, oh, you mean I have to wait? Well, there's almost like a resignation or an irritation, like, oh, fine, I can't do anything. I just have to sit here and be passive. Things are just going to happen to me or be done to me. But again, it feels like it's over time, it comes back to this other way that Ra described it, which was about being the enthralled audience, like allowing yourself to be the enthralled audience at the movie theater. Like you're watching the theater of life play out. And it's actually a relief that you don't have to cast and direct and write and script and fill the whole thing. It's already all there. The flip side of not getting to be in control or having to wait is that you get to be entertained by it all. You actually get to be the enthralled audience of a thing that's been put on for you. It's a gift. It's like, you don't have to create your life. It's already been given to you. You could actually just receive it. It doesn't mean that you're passive. It doesn't mean that you're not part of it. You're a very engaged part of it. But you don't have to orchestrate the whole thing. And isn't that a relief?
Yeah. I've never heard that enthralled audience. Of course, watching the movie, but I like that a lot. Yeah, that's how it feels. So much of, or just another way to kind of like label these things is our relationship to the timing of life. Life has its own timing. And I feel like that's such a big piece of the waiting or the not waiting. We want things to happen yesterday. In my bodywork practice, someone has got into a car accident. They want to be better in 3 weeks and back to their normal life. And I'm like, 6 months or more, man. This isn't a process you can rush. Your body, your vehicle has its own programming, its own timing. Your mind wants it to happen yesterday, but it doesn't work that way. And so it's the same with all the other things in our life. It'll come and it'll probably surprise you when it shows up, and maybe a little way that you weren't expecting it.
Yeah, I like the way you describe that, with the body having its own timing, and the body tends to exist in the now, and it takes as long as it takes. Life exists in the now and takes as long as it takes, but it's usually the mind that I think you're pointing to, which is like in the past, in the future. It's not necessarily grounded in the now, and that's part of the gift of the mind, is it can go all over the place and it can project out and look back. But like you're saying, things do take the time that they take, and we're constantly questioning that or trying to manipulate that or change that on some level.
Or fixated on the now. I mean, we've had this transit for 6 months or more, or a year or more, with 6124 channel of awareness. And that's been a major background theme. Everyone wants the answers now. They're just fixated on getting their ideas out and making everyone recognize their ideas and whatever. Anyway, same idea, just in a different way. Past, present, and future. If it's all the not self, the mind, yeah, it's trying to control it.
I saw recently that you posted something on Facebook about getting struck by lightning. And I was wondering if you would share that with us here. I mean, that sounds like an incredible story. And that's one of those things that's basically a cliche or something that most people will never experience. And you did?
You haven't been hit by lightning?
No.
Oh, I thought this was like a daily thing for most people. It is a cliche in a way. I mean, a metaphor for wake the fuck up. Even after that, 6 weeks after that experience, I had a slow bleed in my head because I fell and I hit the concrete, and then I had to have a head surgery 6 weeks later. So I had to get it through my thick skull, and I had to get enlightening. So
you had all the metaphors.
I had all the metaphors for, wake up, dude. You've got to see something here. And I'm actually sitting down, and after 20 years, this happened 20 years ago. I was 23 years old. I'm finally sitting down and writing the story out and the journey for me, because it's been a journey. It wasn't just that experience. Thinking about it today in the context of human design, I can relate to Ra's experience. because the first thing that the voice told him, the encounter, if I remember correctly, was, "Are you ready to work, dog?" And when I had this lightning experience, I had a near-death experience. I actually left my body, went to the other side, as they call it, and got to have an experience there. And it wasn't a very long, or as far as other near-death experiences go that I read about, I didn't go on some crazy journey through creation or anything, but I call the place that I went to the waiting room, because when I got hit, my nervous system was just so fried. Nothing was firing correctly. And so I think I just had to leave my body for that to recalibrate. And I went to this place of divine love and this ocean of love and total oneness. And that really imprinted me there in that place. And after kind of waiting there and enjoying the oneness of creation for a little bit, two presences came to me and told me it was time to go back to my body and that I had work to do. And I told them I didn't want to go back. And they said, once again, you have work to do. It kind of felt like they turned me around and showed me the door and kicked me out. And then I descended back through these realms, and I felt myself being compressed back into this imprint, into this form. I'm actually kind of curious about what happens with these near-death experiences with our personality and design crystal. I mean, I almost feel like my personality crystal dislodged and kind of went out. So I don't know, it'd be an interesting discussion to open up at one point. I felt it coming back into this specific imprint and then waking up in my body. And that was obviously life-changing and peak experience of my life, and solidified into my awareness, kind of like what we were talking about, just that I really saw that it is all love behind the scenes. This is all a place that we've come to learn something, and it's not necessarily easy. This realm, this plane is not meant to be a place it's not a heavenly realm here. It's a classroom. Trying to seek bliss and leave our body is not the point of this existence. Human design helping us understand our purpose and direction in life is such a gift that we've been given the tool to on that in this classroom. Like I said, it's been a process. Can relate to what Roth felt. I mean, I think he was a little crazy for a year. He lived in a tree for a year after that. John, you were talking about the disorienting nature of seeing the truth of things behind the scenes. You can feel a little crazy at some point, or ungrounded, or just not know how it fits into this world of illusion and this Maya and the not self-homogenized killer monkey world out there. It can be hard, but it's been a process of integration for over that time. And what does that mean when reality gets ripped open before you and basically these angels tell you that you have work to do? It's heavy. It's actually pretty heavy.
Yeah.
And 20 years later, for some reason, I posted that a few days ago because I'm in a good place with it. And I feel like I've worked through the heaviness of it, and I've embraced the mission I feel like I've been given. And like I said, I do all the things I love, and I love all the things I do. And all of those things help other people to live their authentic life and to make some sense out of this crazy plane that we're on here. So yeah, I've just been kind of taking time to honor that and to honor the gifts I've been given in that way, and feel like it's, in some ways, it made my life harder at first, because it's like, okay, now I'm supposed to be here and be in this illusion. There I was, I'm 23 years old and my whole life ahead of me. And now I feel like I've been able to embrace those things we've talked about, that God is love, life loves us. When we can surrender to things in the correct mechanical way of our true nature, we can really enjoy the movie.
It's just hard to kind of wrap my head around that experience. I mean, it sounds like a psychedelic experience of the highest order, like getting hit by lightning, but the way you describe it, interestingly, it brings up experiences I've had with other things, 5-MeO as an example, or finding yourself in that type of space. What's, I guess, really unique about it, the way you share it, is that coming back in, like not wanting to come back in, but knowing that you have work to do, and that it's maybe not a choice even. it's your time when it's your time, and it's not your time when it's not your time. And there it is. I kind of have to ask, you're cross of the sleeping phoenix, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And do you see a connection there, a relationship in terms of that waking up and having to almost die in order to be reborn, or for something new to come into the world? Or how do you hold that?
Well, yeah, I guess I am that. The sleeping phoenix is very much about self-empowerment. Part of the 4 arms of that cross involve the 34 and the 20, and that naturally makes a manifesting generator. And the 3420 is an integration channel, which is all about self-empowerment. I just feel like I've lived that. And so when I say I am that, I feel like I've really lived that in my life. I just, at any cost, I've really kind of just followed my heart, kind of just did what felt good to me. I've got the full experience, eventually marriage and divorce and children and a lot of the practical side of life. I've got 2 kids. That path of self-empowerment that has been my path of awakening. I've just been really, really deeply committed to that. But since a young age, it's just been really strong in me to basically explore a shamanic path, probably starting at 14, 15, 16 years old. These things started happening to me and coming to me, and kind of a lot of mystical experiences just happened to me. So, as we move into the cross of the sleeping phoenix, and it feels like, all that's been going on in the last year, feeling like a nice trailer to the movie coming, I really just mechanically just resonate with what's going on. A lot of what I feel like the last year, COVID times, have been, I think, really teaching people to reevaluate what's important in their life. 9/11 happened, Y2K, a lot of these things help people reevaluate, what's really important to me. Am I just living someone else's dream? Am I caught up in the homogenized rat race program, or am I living my life? That's just what we're moving into. And I don't really want to spiritualize it or make a big deal out of it. It's just, that's what I've been doing. That's how I've been living. And that's what we're moving into, where people are going to have to learn to empower themselves to survive. That's what that's about. That can look like a lot of different things. But similarly, as part of being a sleeping phoenix, the reason why it's called sleeping is if you're just being busy, you're not really empowering yourself. You're just a vacuum of doing. That's when the bird wakes up, is when you stop and slow down and start to learn to respond correctly, to live correctly with following your strategy and authority, enter into things correctly, live your authentic life, truly do the things you love that empower you, and not scramble around just filling your life up because you can't help it. I know what that's like. I know what it's like to be overly busy and can't stop. I still can't stop. I'm a creator. My son is in the 59. I'm just like, I have to be busy creating, empowering myself and other people. So yeah, but it's just when you start to do that, following your strategy and authority, and that's when you wake up. It's not a big deal. It's just what happens.
A mutative process, mutative in terms of what your life story has been and continues to be, and what we're seeing out in the world. We don't have to spiritualize it. We can just say, hey, things are in a process of change. That's what's happening. But to your point, if we're just running around like automatons and busy, and there's no awareness, or there's really no real connection with what we're doing, maybe it remains sleeping. Maybe, that's just what it is.
Mm-hmm. I really like you said that. I've been kind of contemplating that. We want to spiritualize things in a way like, oh, we're moving into the age of the sleeping phoenix, like it gets the next 2012 end of time kind of thing. It's fun to think about it that way. But global cycles, we're just moving through another global cycle, and this is the background frequency that we're all going to have to attune to. And so, what does self-empowerment look like for you? Plant your garden, get aligned with the right people that you and your little internal community, and whatever it might be. That's just what the background theme is going to be. We don't know really what it's going to look like, but we can, we know what some of those keynotes of self-empowerment and might look like.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that. It's fascinating to hear and then to even consider an experience like that, getting struck by lightning. And it's just been, it's been nice to speak with you today and to talk to another analyst and learn a little bit more about how you look at things. And I can feel a lot of resonance in the work that you're doing with the way we tend to look at that work. As far as people contacting you, what's the best way for them to find you? Do you have a website that they can go to, or?
Yeah, my website is Nova Healing Arts, Nova, healingarts.com. I've kind of just put all the things I do under that site. You can follow the links to the human design stuff there. One thing that I also just been a big part of my practice is my music. Writing and recording music since I was probably 13 years old. You can hear some of my music under my name, under Spotify. If you just want to feel that vibration of all these things, I feel like that sleeping phoenix vibration kind of comes through in a lot of my music or whatever. So you can look up Peter Berv on Spotify, Nova Healing Arts. I have a Facebook Human Design Denver page. I don't do a whole lot with it, but maybe I will more if more people jump on there. I moderate some stuff on the Human Design System Facebook page. But yeah, mostly novahealingarts.com is where you can find me.
Cool. Well, this has been fun. I feel like we could probably keep going for another hour, and maybe we'll just get together and do it again, hopefully in the near future.
Yeah, let's take it deeper when the time is right.
All right. Well,
yeah, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Amy and John. You guys are awesome. Really appreciate the platform you guys have created with your Human Design Collective.
Well, thank you.
Community.
Thank you. Great to talk with you.
Yeah,
all right.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening to the Human Design Collective podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please review us and share. For more information about us and to connect with others on this experimental journey, please visit us at humandesigncollective.com. You can also learn more by exploring our course and workshop offerings at courses.humandesigncollective.com. Music for the Human Design Collective podcast, courtesy of Role Model. For more information, see the show notes. And please stay tuned for more upcoming episodes on the same channel.